All right, we're alive. Welcome to the podcast, Jake from Steak Farm. I love it. Very appreciative of having you on here. I was telling you earlier offline that I got connected to you from Joey Sorts from Instagram, who has been talking about all the meat he's been eating. I was like, man, where are you getting this from? He sent me over your Instagram link, and then you and me connected on there, and here we are. So I'm very excited to talk about what you're doing and why it's different and why it's important for people to kind of shift their mindset away from maybe what they're currently eating to something new and try a different product that is going to be beneficial for them, the planet, and just ultimately make everything a healthier place for us to live. But really appreciate you being on here. Definitely want just to start off and explain kind of a little bit about what you're doing with regenerative agriculture, what you're doing with the cattle that you're raising, and kind of what makes it different from everything else.
So first off, man, thanks for having me on. Glad that you're connected with Joey. Delivered to him over the summer. I think he got a whole beef, half a whole beef from us. It was from the Missouri herd, and the feedback's been good. He's definitely liked the beef. He posted a couple of reels on Instagram. I went through and looked at them. The comments section was blowing him up for how much he spent for it. But I don't know. I think most people they're probably not buying actual grass-fed and grass-finished beef. If they are, they're probably buying young animals. The beef he bought from us, that animal, it was on grass for a full 3 years, 36 months, so it is going to be a little more expensive. But it sounds like overall he was happy with the beef from the Missouri herd. In terms of regenerative ag, I don't ranch personally. I started the business May of 2022 with the goal of sourcing and distributing, and then just attempting to prove a concept, to prove a concept that there's a demand for grass-fed and finished beef through the direct-to-consumer model, which is basically households buying animal shares, sixteenths, eighths, quarters, halves, and wholes, and getting themselves set up with a chest freezer. Every now and then we would run a promo where we would buy people chest freezers if they would buy animal shares from us. So my involvement with regenerative ag, it's really just a support role where I help the rancher or grass finisher, as I typically call them. I help them find a home for their animals after they're mature and ready for harvest. The the traditional model, the rancher's just got to take his or her animals to the sell barn or the cattle yard where they get auctioned off. So right now, beef producers, they can make good money at the sell barn, and they have been able to for the last 2.5 years. But that all shifts. That whole commodity market's it's a roller coaster. So that's going to change. Ranchers usually make really good money for a year and then really bad money for 5 years when they're relying on the sell barn. So what we set out to do was to build a customer database so that regardless of the prices at the sell barn, we would have households to sell directly to across the country. And so we set out to do that, I guess, 3.5 years now, May of 2022. So coming up on 4 years. And in that time, we've delivered beef to over 1,000 households. We have 600 repeat customers, and we just continue to stay in touch with our customer database and make sure people are getting what they need. As it relates to beef, every now and then we have offerings such as bison, whole pasture-raised chickens, pasture-raised pork, ground pork, but our main effort is definitely beef.
It's awesome. And you said you were partnered up with your buddy RC, and he is currently manning all the cattle in Wyoming right now.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't work directly with the Missouri herd anymore. I keep in touch with those folks. They're family friends, and if people reach out to us from like Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, we'll send them straight to that rancher in Southwest Missouri, Oklahoma as well. They're real close to the Missouri-Oklahoma border. But now what I do is I work directly with RC. RC's in Ten Sleep, Wyoming. Him and his wife and their sons, they run the ranch and manage all the cattle on tens of thousands of acres of land. It's Wyoming. There's tons of land up there, and hardly anyone lives there. So they manage a really big herd of Black Angus animals on thousands of acres of land, and all those animals are raised and finished on grass. He specializes in a method of grazing. It's a Galician style beef, Vaca Viejo. Galicia is a region in Spain where he learned this method of grazing. He keeps his animals on grass for 8+ years. Most grass-fed and finished animals around the country, you're looking at like some go to harvest as young as 20 months. You're lucky to find an animal on grass for longer than 48 months. RC's got a completely different model. 96 months minimum, 8+ years. So being on grass that long, the animals are athletes. They're not like, I'm sure you or your audience has heard of Will Harris compare feedlot animals to obese humans at, you
Hmm.
know, Walmart or Dollar General or whatever. Those animals out on feedlots, they're literally obese mammals, and it's just a matter of hours or days until they die. It's like I've heard stories that feedlots actually maintain um, actuaries, kind of like life insurance policies, where they know the day that these animals will die. It's literally scheduled down to the day. But anyways, RC's animals they should be compared to athletes because of how much they move around on his land, rotate from pasture to pasture. During the warmer months of the year, he has actual cattle drives where he and his family are out there on horseback or side by sides or ATVs, and he brings his ranch hands out, and they have to move the cattle through the different fields to get them to the grasslands they need them on. But but he and I are partnered up. He he runs his business, Carter Country Meats. I run mine, Jake Steaks, and then his nephew runs the freezer space in Denver, and we do all of our distribution nationwide from there. Um, but it's really good beef, man. It's when the animals are on grass that long, the beef becomes surprisingly tender, and then you have a full flavor profile, and then you get really good marbling as well. Most of the fat cells are developed in like the first 12 months of life on these animals. So the longer you have them on grass, the longer you keep them alive, the more all of those fat cells work their way into the muscle, and that's when you develop that really good intramuscular marbling.
And what is kind of like the main difference between grass fed, grass finished, and the typical lot feed that you're talking about, where they have the cows almost down to the exact hour that they're going to be dying on these lots? That I'm sure most people actually have driven past. Maybe they're going to Arizona or Vegas or something, and they see these huge lots with cows on the side of the road. You don't see any grass whatsoever. It's just dirt for miles and miles. You can smell everything. But what's kind of like the biggest difference between them eating corn or soy products versus the cows eating grass out in the fields, wild, kind of that athlete status?
I mean, I think the biggest difference is if you were to send meat from one of those feedlot animals off to a lab, and then you were to send meat from one of these animals being raised in north central Wyoming off to the lab, the feedback on the nutrient densities, it's going to be completely different. So I'm sure there's upsides to eating feedlot beef. I mean, we're a nation of like 360 million people. There's not enough grass-fed and finished beef for everyone. We don't pretend to be able to feed the entire country. You're not going to find this beef from north central Wyoming being served at McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell. It's just not an option yet. One day it may be. Who knows what these ranchers around the country are able to pull off? But the beef coming from feedlot, it serves its purpose. I'm in Southern California. I'm sure there's neighbors all around me that they just go and get their beef from Ralph's or Vaughn's. And it's not the end of the world. Those people get by just fine. But the grass-fed and finished beef from Wyoming, specifically the animals that RC is raising, where the animals that they're not even just grass-fed and finished, they're raised and finished on polyculture. So probably hundreds, probably even thousands of different species of grass. And it's perennial root systems where you don't have to reseed every year. The grasses grow up, they sprout, they release their own seeds into the environment. That seed gets spread around by wind and rain and cattle moving about, and uh, manure ends up on the ground, and the seed gets passed on and moved through these fields. So So what happens is you get these really deep root systems, and those root systems reach down 6, 8, 12 feet into the earth, and they pull up all the minerals and nutrition that's in that soil, and then that ends up in the grass, which ends up in the cattle. You're not going to get that in a feedlot. In a feedlot, the animals they're not even standing on soil. They're standing on dirt at best. Usually they're standing on concrete. Do they have access and exposure to sunlight? Probably not on a consistent basis. A lot of times they're in confined environments, so they're probably not even seeing the sun. And then they're not foraging for their food. They're standing at a trough, and the food is at best a commodity crop, a grain or a corn, a mixed ration. At worst, right now, man, it might be like pelletized chicken parts, just ground up scrap from poultry and turned into some type of product that looks like dog food. I've heard stories, sure, they're YouTube stories, but these ideas come from somewhere. Someone told someone something, of feedlot operators going out to Walmart or local grocery stores and picking up all of the day old bread, the stuff that's gone bad, bread and donuts and croissants and bagels, and they can throw all that in there. That's more calories for the animals. I've heard horror stories of people going out to like Mars and Hershey's chocolate factories or plants and getting all the old expired candy that hasn't been moved or sold and taking that out there and throwing that in the trough for those feedlot animals. And sometimes they don't even take it out of the plastic, these animals will eat anything if you put it in front of them, especially if it's sweet and sugary and has a bunch of calories in it and is high in energy. So it's like, at what point did it become acceptable for us to, one, treat animals that way, and then two, eat animals that are eating that way? It's like, it doesn't even make sense,
Yeah, I
So,
mean it's almost hard to wrap your head around. I mean, I've heard of some of the stories, and then you see like Food Inc., right? I think that came
mm,
out like 15 years ago,
hmm
and that was like a really shocking, think realization for everyone. But I feel like fast forward, nothing has changed. Like I almost think that it could have gotten worse since then because now you do have a lot of this mass-produced processed food that they're like, well, we don't know what to do with it. It's not selling in the stores. We have all this extra expired. So let's just give it to the animals so that way we can just get rid of it that way. But then we're consuming the animals that are consuming that. So it doesn't make us any different than just eating that directly. And I think that's what a lot of people are so disconnected from living in cities, being away from farms, and not knowing kind of how cattle is supposed to be raised, like how God intended it for us to be good stewards of the land and to take care of our bodies as temples is we need to understand like did God create this or did man create it? And then kind of gauge what are we consuming from there because we're the most progressive, like America's the most progressive country out there, yet we have the most obesity, the most cancer, the most sick people. We spend the most on insurance for health related symptom management. We're not even curing these diseases. We're just getting sicker and then trying to manage all these symptoms. And I think it comes down to it's like how connected are you to where your food is being sourced, how it's treated, and how it's being taken care of from like a good steward place. And so I think people need to understand it's like you are what you eat. If you're eating mass fed like cows that are eating everything in the grocery store that's expired, that's bad, we become that. And then we become sick overall. And so going back to the roots of like wild foraging, eating plants and animals, and having these cattle being taken care of from a humane perspective is going to make the beef taste better. It's going to make it better quality, and it's going to make it more nutritious for everyone consuming it.
yeah, yeah, I agree with those statements, but pretty much across the board. Uh, it's, it just lends itself to developing an entirely different product once those animals are ready for harvest. It's really, man, it's almost like you're comparing two different types of fruit to each other. They're just vastly different in terms of what ends up on the dinner plate. Um, I bought I think I bought 2 pounds of ground beef at Sprouts down here or up here in Costa Mesa, California the other day. I was at the grocery store. I want to say it was marked down from like $12 and it was on sale for like 7. and it was a lean ground beef. It was 93.7. So I picked it up to bring it home and see what it tasted like. It just doesn't even compare to the product that I bring home for my family from the ranch in north central Wyoming. We order a 40-pound box every month just for our own consumption here in Costa Mesa. But trying to compare that to something at Sprouts that even the label says, like, from animals not treated with vaccines and growth hormones and steroids and all this stuff, but who knows what they're feeding the animals.
Yeah.
So they're vastly different from one another.
Yeah, I don't think there's any regulation on the food that they're fed. Like, there's just certain FDA requirements on like packaging and labeling of like antibiotics, nitrates, everything. But besides that, I don't think there's any regulation on the food similar to like our supplement industry. Like the supplement industry isn't regulated at all, so I think they go hand in hand. Um, this regenerative like agriculture space and just foraging out in the wild and everything, a lot of people say is less hygienic. Like you can't control as much. It's dirty, like they're eating all these insects and they're walking around in their feces and like plopping it up. What do you think about like people kind of making these claims? It's like, well, it's out in the wild. I'd rather have it just kind of be confined and know exactly what's happening to these cows.
Uh, I'll probably reserve my comments on that, man. That's like, yeah, I really wouldn't give any time of day to people that are thinking that way. I mean, how do you even make sense of that logic? That makes me think of there's this dude I've had people send me like Instagram reels and YouTube videos of him, Brian Johnson.
Oh
He's
yeah, the
he's
living to like 180, trying to reverse his biological age and everything.
yeah. It's like, cool, bud. Have fun with your video games or whatever else you're doing inside all day.
Yeah, I think
So
he's not eating any meat. I think that's what he said. There's no meat. He's just consuming like a vegan diet, I think is what he's doing.
yeah, I think so. I think it's along those lines. Yeah, we just had our beef dropped off. UPS dropped it off for us. This
Oh,
came from a. Am I able to flip the screen on this app?
you should be able to. If not, you can just turn the phone around.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So that way
Oh,
we
this
could
one.
see it.
Yeah, so this one, can you see it? This one says
Oh
Parker
yeah.
Pastures.
Yep.
Okay, so Parker Pastures, that's a friend of mine. Her name's Chloe Parker. She's in Southwest Colorado,
Okay.
Gunnison, Colorado. Her and her dad raise animals there as well, and they rate them to the same standard that RC raises his up in north central Wyoming. But every now and then I'll order a box from her and her dad as well, just to show some support. But they're a good source of beef also.
Yeah, wanna support all like the small local family owned farms that you can, because the more that they are being consumed and the more that they can produce, the better for the planet, the better the environment, and more animals get taken care of with the humane level that they deserve. I think that's the misconceptions. It's so easy to walk into like a grocery store chain, kind of like Sprouts, Ralph's, or Vaughn's, and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna buy whatever meat's out here, but you just are removed from how those animals were treated, how they're taken care of, what they're being fed, and then ultimately it's like people think of it just as like some form of just like someone else out there is doing the hard work and I'm just gonna buy the meat and that's it. Like there's no connection to the food, mouth, animal. And I think that's what we have lost in society is like we are so disconnected. People don't hunt for their own food anymore. They just easy, convenient way, and the more convenient and the cheaper the option, the more people are trying to go towards that route. But you're either gonna pay now or pay later with some type of form of physical ailment if you're not kind of going towards these local grass-fed, grass-finished ideas.
Yeah, you probably are. That idea you're gonna pay now or pay later. I'm sure there's some truth to that. I mean, we could probably just look at our parents or grandparents and how they lived or generations before us. Yeah, I think as far as like the marketplace goes, I mean, my goal in starting this was just, okay, how do we bring as much money back to the farm as possible? Not necessarily like out of altruism or wanting to do the right thing, But just knowing that the more money we bring back to the farm, the better land leases we can get, the more acreage of land we have for the animals to graze on, and then ultimately the better product you're going to get. Um, Luckily, I'm at RC and we were outside of Yellowstone, Cody, Wyoming area. Um, June of 2024, we met at an event there that a mutual friend of ours was putting on, and he and I became quick pals, and then just kept in touch. And then just this past fall, October, November timeframe, we were able to come to an agreement and be able to work together. Uh, but he's got no shortage of access to land up there in Wyoming. But he does have a very romantic idea of feeding as much of this incredibly nutrient dense beef to as many people as possible to make a difference and to make a change. He's way more of a dreamer than I am when it relates to that stuff. But I do think it's really important, you know.
Hmm. And before you kind of got involved with and partnered up with him and kind of becoming part of this amazing business you guys have created, is like, what was your background related to just cattle, farms, just and like anything in general, really?
I grew up in central Kansas, so I generally was just aware that agriculture took place. It just takes place around you in parts of the country like that. But I had never worked in ag. After high school, I went to college, got a degree in tech and construction management, took a commission into the Army as a second lieutenant, and then did just under 10 years as a lieutenant and a captain in the Army. Came out of the Army, went to work in commercial construction, just doing superintendent and field work around the country for different general contractors, mostly concrete and steel work. And then I stumbled upon the grass-fed, grass-finished thing out of necessity. I got sick. I was sick for like 6 weeks. I could not get well. I handed my job site off to another superintendent and went home to Missouri to try to get better. And in the process of getting better, discovered Saladino and all of his content, uh, animal-based lifestyle, raw milk, grass-fed and finished beef, and then decided I wanted to help not just pass the message along to other people. If you look at my Instagram, I'm no content creator. Like I don't, I'll make like a funny story here and there, but no serious content. Uh, so my goal was sure, I want to educate people. I want to help them learn and understand why this stuff is important. But I really wanted to help people get access to the product itself, and then have it be a win-win for myself. So I had occupation, and then for the rancher, so that we had an outlet for their cattle. And instead of just selling those good animals off at the sell barn, and then all of a sudden they're being served at Taco Bell or whatever, they can put all that time and effort and energy into raising really good animals, and then we can place those animals in households across the country, so families can be eating on them.
And when you say you got sick for a few weeks and that was what kind of led you to changing up your diet, what kind of happened before you got sick, and like how do you think food related to you maybe getting sick or also in that healing process? What kind of happened back then?
I was a superintendent on a job site down in Houston, Texas. And so when you're a traveling superintendent, a lot of times you're just staying like at an Airbnb or at a roadside motel. You're usually not preparing your own food. So I was probably just like eating burgers at Five Guys and just just not like good, clean, hygienic food operations, burger joints that are being run by teenagers. And then I don't know what Five Guys is serving, but I'm assuming it's just feedlot beef, so probably missing out on some nutrition here and there. But overall, man, I don't know. I never get sick. So when I was sick for 6 weeks, I was like, okay, something's clearly wrong. And I think I was probably missing out on some nutrition. And then uh, Houston's like a real industrial area, man. The air quality down there sucks, so that could have been contributing to it as well. Um, but yeah, but, I mean, I have usually like some self-critical thoughts about myself when I get sick, but I'll save those for I don't know if that was on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way. It's rare when I get sick, and if I get sick, it has to be something super big to take me down. And the times that I've been sick the longest were the times that I wasn't taking care of my body before I got
Yeah.
sick, which made it just
Mhm.
10 times harder. But what did you like tangibly start switching during that time that you were sick, kind of following that diet of Paul Saldino and everything? Do you think that helped you heal up and now come out better and stronger on the other side of that?
Uh, okay, so specifically during that time, I left Houston. I handed my job site off to another super, and then came home to Missouri. I immediately discovered raw milk, which to me it's insane in hindsight that I lived my whole life not really giving any thought to the idea of raw cow milk. And the farmer that I found, the dairy farmer, he said, "Man, if you're sick and you're trying to get well," he's like, "I would just go on like a 2 week fast and don't consume cow milk though, consume goat milk." And he had these little, they're called Nubian dairy goats, and he's got like some of the best genetics in the world, actually, not just the U.S. or the Midwest. Uh, he even sends his genetics, semen, around the world to places in like Africa, Asia, the Philippines to help like little rural indigenous operations there get their farms up and running.
Wow.
Um, and so for those 2 weeks, I just did raw dairy, goat milk specifically. And then obviously being home, like not having to be on a job site from 6 to 4 every day, get
Wow.
rest, get sunlight, get on grass, do some grounding. Stress is lower when you're managing those job sites. It can be pretty stressful. But did that, and then the raw dairy farmer introduced me to the guys that were doing grass-fed and finished beef, and so made friends with that farmer and his daughter. They, I wasn't too sure what I was doing. I just kind of jumped right in, but I bought two whole animals to start off with, and when I went to pick them up, I called the rancher. I was like, "Larry, why didn't you give me a heads up, man? This is like 1,000 pounds of beef."
Yeah,
And,
that's huge.
yeah, he's like, dude, you're a grown man. Like, I'm not gonna tell you how you should spend your money. And so I was like, well, what do I do with it? And he's like, you got to get on the phone, man. And, find friends and family that want grass-fed and finished beef. And so that kicked off the business essentially, and
Hmm.
wanting to figure out, okay, why is this beef better? Is there a demand for this beef? And then I bought too much of it, and I was like, all right, I better find people who also want this.
Yeah.
And then my first big delivery was actually really close to where I'm at today. It was in Newport Beach, California, just right over by the pier. And
Okay.
I delivered to a family there, delivered to a few other families out here, and also along the way out here along Interstate 40. And by the time I got back to Missouri, they had already told friends and family, and they were calling for beef. And so we just kept the thing rolling, and we've been going for over 3.5 years now.
And it's just you, RC, his family, and a couple other people that are running this entire operation, right? It's basically everyone has their hands pretty much directly on one part of the process.
Yeah, in the beginning, it was myself as the driver, and then a couple different ranchers. Riley Israel at Diamond Eye Cattle Co. in Southwest Missouri, and then August Horseman at Horseman Cattle Co. in Northeast Missouri. And they're on socials, they're on Instagram, and they've got websites and stuff. Halfway into it, I had a buddy come on board and help out with some of the deliveries for me around the country. We both had minivans. We filled them up with coolers, and we would put the frozen beef in the coolers and top it off with dry ice, and literally just drive back and forth across the country, delivering beef to households. Um, Somewhere in there, my girlfriend jumped on board. She built us out a website. People can go to the website and take a look at things. jakesteaks.com. There's just one S in the middle. And then just a few months ago, RC and I had to come off the road. My girlfriend and I got pregnant. We just had our first baby together a month ago on February 8th. Um,
It's
and so-
amazing. Congratulations.
yeah, thanks, man. We're a little obsessed with her.
I
She's
bet.
Yeah, dude, she's a good kid. She's like shy, so I'm not gonna put her on camera.
That's all right.
But anyways, they're sitting next to me. They're at the other end of the couch. Um, so yeah, I just had to come up with a plan to get off the road. So we just kind of dissolved the working relationship we had with the folks in Missouri. Keep in touch with them, send them business. We're all family friends. And then RC having the freezer space set up in Denver where we can do distribution out of.
Hmm.
What we did is we just merged our customer databases, and so now we can service all of the customers that get their beef from Jake Steaks, as well as his beef business, Carter Country Meats, and then his nephew Taylor. He fulfills all the orders, gets them all packed up and ready, and hands them off to a UPS driver every day. Well, Monday, Tuesday, sometimes Wednesdays, but
Yeah.
you can't ship every day because it's like, if you ship on Friday and it sets at someone's front porch Saturday and Sunday while they're out of town, they come back.
It'll just melt.
It's a mess, yeah. So you got to be strategic with shipping. You've ordered online before
Hmm.
frozen beef, so.
Yeah, and you guys ship pretty much everywhere in the United States.
Yeah, we'll do all 48 states. There's a little upcharge on shipping cost if you're up in the Northeast, like New York, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Most of those people they know that by now, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe in the Northwest too, maybe like Washington State and Oregon, there might be an upcharge on shipping and handling. We'll even ship to Hawaii, Alaska, and Puerto Rico. Same thing there. There's an increase in shipping costs,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's how we run things now. No more. I'll do some home deliveries down here in Southern California if I have
Yeah.
product in inventory at our place in Costa Mesa. But I'm not on the road. These last 3 months, last 3 or 4 months, I've not been on the road. The first 3.5 years of doing this, being on the road, that minivan I bought it at 155,000 miles. When I parked it at our place in Costa Mesa in November, it was at 420,000 miles. Just to put it in
Nice.
perspective. So
Yeah, and we're gonna link all the like the website, everything for people to be able to go to so they can order directly from you guys, support the local farmers of Wyoming and just make sure that they're eating better quality food for them and their family. And it'll come frozen with dry ice directly to their front doorstep. So we'll make sure everything is in the show notes. But really, I think people just haven't that aren't aware of what grass fed, grass finished is. It's like the most convenient way to order food and not have to go to the grocery store and have it come perfectly. You take it out from the freezer, thaw it a couple days before you want to cook something, depending on the cut of meat, and then you basically get to cook it up for the family. So it's way less stressful than going to the grocery store, way better quality, and it's going to make you and your family a lot healthier long term the more you eat it.
yeah, I think you're right, man. It's it probably is a little more expensive price per pound than what you're going to find at grocery stores around the country, but the quality is significantly better than the product you're going to come home with. So usually I tell people, hey, just take a look at the website. The math is easy. 600 $600 for a 16th of a beef. We guarantee 35 plus pounds. So you're always going to get 35 to 40 pounds. So you just do the math on that, whatever the price is per pound. And then the bigger commitment you make to us as you go up the scale of animal shares, eighths, quarters, halves, wholes, the better price per pound you get, the more cost efficient it becomes. And then you've got beef in your freezer year round. You're not having to buy, you still got to go to the grocery store and get other provisions, but all your protein, at least beef wise, is out there in the chest freezer. And then the nutrient density of the meat is significantly higher than what you'll get at the grocery store. Plus, you're not getting all the crap in your body from the residuals that have been fed to the animals. The animals that are coming from Wyoming, no antibiotics ever, no growth hormones and steroids, no vaccine schedule, no mRNA vaccines. Everything is EverSoil certified. If people want to learn about the EverSoil certification, um, they can go on the Jake Steaks website. They can go on the Carter Country Meats website. They can even just Google EverSoil certification. What is it? And it was developed by RC and a couple business partners of his in Colorado and then another guy down here in Southern California, that works remote. But
Hmm.
but it's a really fascinating certification. It's above and beyond organic and regenerative. All these certifications are great, but like at the end of the day, what is it? It's like a stamp that you got to put on stuff to gain people's trust.
Hmm.
When Jake Steak started out, what I told people is you can only expect to get what you're willing to inspect, and that's just an old adage that I learned when I was in the Army. You know, you gotta, as a platoon leader, an executive officer, and a company commander, you have to be involved and take a look at stuff. So that's what I started doing out with these ranches when I started this out. I would go look and pick out my own animals based on how the animals were being cared for and treated and raised. Well, with RC, I mean, I've been on his ranch a half dozen times. He and I were friends. It's a family operation. Him and his wife and kids. Um, I would trust that guy maybe with my newborn. I'm not sure yet. But
Maybe in a few months or something.
yeah, but then on top of that, he's got the soil stamp on there, the certification. So, and people can read up on that stuff online, or I can drop a link or something.
Yeah, we'll put that link in the show notes so people can go to it. But just on that little caveat is like, why is it important for even the soil to matter that these cattle are raised on and treated on, and like how important is even soil in the grand scheme of things?
Well, I mean, it's definitely important. It's kind of like part of our origin story. That's where it all comes from. Even when we were at the hospital a month ago doing the birth thing, we're asking the doctors about like, okay, do we need to do probiotics and stuff like that? And they're like, nah, just, once your baby's a couple months old, make sure you're getting her in grass and, close to dirt and soil and stuff. That's where it all begins. Microorganisms, microbes, um, life kind of starts with soil. The big thing with the soil for these animals in Wyoming is what the grass is able to pull from it. And then, like we talked about earlier, those perennial root systems, they pass all that nutrition from the soil onto the grass, and then that gets passed on to the herbivore, the cattle. Um, Man, there's so many like YouTube clips and Netflix shows you can watch about soil and like they've done all this research about mushrooms and like fungi and how they communicate with each other through the soil, all these nodes and webs that interwork together. Um, so with soil, I don't know. For me, in my mind, I just think, okay, everything starts with that. You use the grasses to capture the energy from the sun. That energy gets into the grasses, and then there's that communication that goes on between the grass, the root system, the soil, and then you're just constantly pulling up nutrition and minerals from the soil to get into the animal. And the cattle, they're ruminants. They have four stomach chambers, so essentially they got four opportunities to extract as much nutrition as possible from the grass. All of that ends up in the fat, the muscle meat, the bones, the organs, and then that's the nose to tail concept that we discussed earlier. That's how you pass all of that on to the inline consumer. So I think I guess for city folks, which I am now, I'm just living here on concrete in Orange County, California. I mean, we get out to the beach and the parks and stuff, but I'm not living the rural life that I was when I was in Missouri and Wyoming. For
Yeah.
city folks, ruminant animals, beef and bison specifically, that's like your last connection, at least on a daily basis, to the soil, unless if you're just legitimately getting out to like a national forest and doing a hike every day. So I think it's important in that regards.
Yeah, it's definitely important. I mean, when you're living in the city like we are, I think it's just so hard to always remind ourselves how connected we're supposed to be to nature because we get fixated on the day to day. You're on your phone, you're on a computer, you're not really getting exposed to bacteria, to microorganisms. You're not going and grounding yourself in the soil, walking barefoot, which is what we used to do, to discharge all that energy that's in the body too. So I think it's a really important point to realize like you are what you eat, but you also are connected to what and how animals are living before you eat it. So I love that point of it's kind of is an easy way to stay connected, especially if you are in some place like New York City where you're in steel and cement everywhere, and you're like, how do I get any exposure without having to fly or drive somewhere else? Because you can't really do that every single day. So I love this. I think it's really powerful for people to just even be aware that these options are out there. Like you're not stuck and confined to the only meat products that are in your grocery store. There's other options out there. It might be a little bit more expensive now, but later down the road, your body's going to thank you and pay it forward without having to go to hospitals, without having medical bills, without having all this other stuff and getting sick more often. So I love it. I think it's just super powerful for people to be aware of, and we will link everything so people can go and check out exactly the sourcing. They can go and see the soil certification, and you can order whole cows, half cows, like thirds of cows, right from the website, right?
Yeah, you can do sixteenths all the way up to whole beef. So 16th, eighth, quarter, half whole. There's a few other listings on there. We do an organ blend. Some people call that like an ancestral blend, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes you get an animal. It's not going to be a good animal, share animal. The steaks or the roast or the cuts just aren't going to be good. And so you just turn it into a ground beef animal, which turns out to be a really incredibly flavored ground beef. It's a premium ground beef. It's like a steak blend. And then into that, we usually toss like the bone marrow, liver, kidney, heart, whatever organs we pick off the animal that will fit the blend we're trying to make. So that's a really good option as well. There's ground beef up there. Sometimes there's ground beef up there. The inventory fluctuates, but we do a 75-25, which is a little bit fattier than most folks prefer. But I mean, the fat is great for hormone health. And Man, I struggled how to explain this because the ground beef comes back from the processing facility saying 75-25, but when I cook it up at the house, there's not a bunch of fat left to drain off. So I'm stumped. I don't know if our processing facility is mixing the ratio wrong, or if maybe, and I mean this is just like anecdotal. Maybe there's something about the fat and the muscle meat off these animals where when you cook that grind down, it it homogenizes really well. It could be something along those lines too, but it's a delicious ground beef. We're about to start doing an 80-20, and then we have options for an 85-15 and a 90-10 from another herd, for 90-10 from a herd in Montana, 85-15 from a herd in Southwest Colorado. But yeah, there's good options on the website. There's tallow-based skincare up there. All that tallow-based skincare gets made from the suet from the Wyoming herd. The suet it's incredibly nutrient-dense protective fat. It comes from the liver, kidney, heart, sometimes from the tenderloins. I learned about it from Weston A. Price. Sally Fallon wrote a book called Nourishing Traditions, but we make the tallow-based skincare from the suet. There's home-rendered cooking tallow on the website. That's all from the fat off of the animals in Wyoming. So it's good stuff, man. I'm doing another project with a buddy of mine and his brother. We're calling that Mason's Meats, because the founder of it, that's his last name. And we're going to be sourcing exclusively from the Wyoming herd as well. And we're going to do a crisp. It's like a beef flavored potato chip, basically.
Ooh.
Um,
Sign me up. I'm ready for that.
Dude, it's delicious, and it doesn't taste like fish food. Like the guys at Carnivore Snacks, they're great, man. Mark's a cool dude. I've met them at like the Dave Asprey events or something, Hack Your Health, those types of events. But like you eat that and you're like, huh, what am I tasting? And you're like, oh, this is like when I was a kid and I would like feed little fish food to the fish in the
Yeah.
it just something just off about it. So I was a little skeptical about doing this project with them, but it's literally just beef, salt, and fat, and it doesn't have any of those weird flavors. But that's all going to be from the herd in Wyoming too. So just like cool products, man, that we can hopefully provide as much access to the nutrient density of the beef to as many people as possible. And then our focus, it's really families, because it's like, okay, if families can get quarters, halves, and wholes, they and their children can be eating on this stuff for months and years to come. And I've delivered to families frequently enough over the last 3.5 years they're like, you show up and you see their kids that have been eating this beef for 1, 2, or 3 years, and it like their teeth are straight, they're lean, they look a little muscular, like a little person should look. They can
Hmm.
like maintain eye contact and pay attention. They're not running around with a screen in their hand. So it's cool to see what the increased nutrient density, what it does to the human body.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. Definitely want to support the projects and the journey. And so we'll link everything again in the show notes, but I want to be respectful of your time, Jake. I know you got a little one, you got a lot going on for yourself, but really appreciate you being on the show and look forward to kind of doing this again in the future too.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for the time, man. Thanks for prioritizing us. I appreciate the opportunity. Good luck to you with your move and new adventures and stuff, man. I hope it works out well. And don't be a stranger, man. If you ever need anything from us, just reach out, okay?
No, definitely appreciate that and thank you again.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man. Be well.